welcome to NIFNEX TV. NIFNEX TV is where the small business challenges that businesses face get addressed by a panel of experts. Today's case study is about a huge issue which every business owner is facing these days: social media, newsletters, and digital media. So we've got a fabulous panel. We've got Rajab Karume, who's always thinking outside the square for his digital media clients as well. And so is Dahin Bates from the creative angle. And we've got a social media guru from Alika. So welcome, panel.
Thank you, Zishan.
We should get started. But before we get started, can you sort of address each individual with who you are and what you do? Is that possible? Can I start with you, Rajab?
No pressure. My name is Rajab Karume, and I represent Needle & Hay Digital. So basically what we do at Needle & Hay is we're strategists. So we look at how your business can survive in this, what we call the digital space. It's not only about just getting, what we consider the sexy and Me Too type of approaches. There's a lot of activity, what we consider to be noise. There's a lot of noise in regards to what you should do, what you shouldn't do, and how you should do it. So we come in and look at it from a business perspective. Now, you've got a number of channels that you can take up in that space. Which ones should you take? How should you take them? When should you take them? And what should you expect to get out of them from a business perspective? So in a nutshell, we are a business strategist in the digital space.
Can I keep going with that, because I think you've hit a perfect nerve there. So how do people have meaningful conversations, or actually how do they now grow their business from the digital media?
For us, it's all about deriving value from this space. Now, if you do the same things you've been doing for the last 5-10 years and you've been successful, that's great. But the next 5-10 years might not be exactly the same. It's not going to be a replication of what happened. The environment that we are in, Generation X, Y, and the like, the ubiquitous mobile phones, the interconnectivity that the internet has brought is significantly different from how we've been communicating and interacting in the last, say, 100 years. Yeah. If I could just give an example, maybe to juxtapose and show what I'm saying here. At the end of the 19th century, you had a gentleman by the name of Aristide. His second name escapes me more, so I can't pronounce it. And there's a French gentleman, and he came up with what I consider a fantastic and transformative idea. He noticed that the organization he worked for, what was happening in France at that period of time and across Europe, if not most of the world, you would have independent stores, and each of the independent stores would be next to each other in terms of physical location, that share a building. Now, you did not have fixed pricings. So as a client, I would walk into a shop and I would sort of bargain. If I was looking for chandeliers, for example, I would bargain at the pricing that I could get that chandelier from that particular retailer. If we weren't happy, we could agree on a price. I would have to look for another one. Now, Aristide realized that wasn't productive for each of the retailers, and neither was it appropriate for the consumers. So he got in touch with, I believe, the owner of the building, and what he ended up with is what you now call Le Bon Marché. It is a fantastic mall in France, currently being owned by the Louis Vuitton, I believe, group. So what you had then was, instead of having independent retailers with no fixed pricing, it put them into a collective. Now you were able to funnel all the potential clients through one door, and then they could go in and decimate. What you typically have if you walk into Carina. Now he introduced things like fixed pricing, display pricing, catalogs, delivery. He introduced all this, what we now consider normal in retail. Now, that was over 100 years ago. In the digital space, there's a bit of shift. So if you're not looking at transformative engagement with your clients, we believe you're going to be doing what has been already done, and you're expecting to get a significant output from a very minimum input.
Fabulous. I love your accent, by the way.
Thank you. I've been working on it for
That's
a
not the
couple
only
of
thing I
years.
noticed. The next big topic would be social media. Doug, would you mind introducing yourself quickly and also addressing the question, how do people, or how and where do people start with social media?
Yeah, sure, Sishan. So my name is Douglas Lim, and just under 6 years ago I started a digital marketing agency and a web design company called Alika, based in Subiaco. So in a short amount of period of time, been really blessed in that it's grown very, very fast, because what we do for our clients, similar to Rajab, is we help them get an online presence through a website, but then you might have a website, but then you need traffic to that website, and that's where we do that through SEO, AdWords, newsletter marketing, and what I'm about to speak about, social media. And then we help convert that traffic. So yes, you can get a lot of traffic to your website, but then how do you actually convert that into potential customers? So in terms of the topic of social media, I always say one of the first things that you've got to do is work out your target audience. So a lot of my clients come to me and say, look, I want to be on Instagram, I want to be on Twitter, I want to do this. And I ask them why? Like, what is the reasoning behind it? And they have no reason. It's just because it sounds good. It's a buzzword. So to work out your target audience, there are websites like Quantcast. So with Quantcast, all you have to do is find a competitor to your website, chuck it into Quantcast, and it will tell you the demographics, such as age, sex, household income, where they live, you name it. And then when you get statistics like that, and also in addition to creating your own target demographic user personas, you can then figure out which channels will fit to your target audience. So for example, like Rajab mentioned, Gen Ys, if your target demographic are Gen Ys, then it would make sense to use the social media channels where they live, because it wouldn't make sense to use other channels, say LinkedIn. That's more for your B2B, more for your professionals. So that's the first thing I'd say. And then the second thing is obviously work out your branding behind your business. So are you fun? Are you professional? Are you conversational? And make sure that comes through to your content marketing strategy. So I'm saying all these things right before you do your social media, because you need to lay your foundations before you can then apply it to your social media. So then once you worked out your content marketing strategy, you know your branding, you know your voice, that will permeate through your content, and then from your content that can be displayed out and permeated through to your social media channels. And different social media channels for different purposes. So for LinkedIn, it's more B2B, and Facebook more B2C, so classic examples. And then once you're on those channels, then that's the next step up, which I'm happy to talk about as well.
For people who don't know what content marketing is, would you mind sort of just going to that a little bit more, please?
So content marketing is effectively developing content that has the same unified message that's permeating through it. So, for example, I've seen some clients do this before they come to us. What they'll do is you look on their Facebook, they'll talk about one day, say if they're a plumber, say for example. One day they're talking about the Freo Dockers, and then the next day they're talking about the Perth Zoo, and then the next day they're talking about the Perth Fashion Festival. Whatever they find interesting, they're posting up. But you as an audience, and Rajab mentioned this really well, that engagement, what sort of branding and messaging is that coming through to you? It's all over the place. So content marketing is really harnessing that and making sure that that messaging is unified across all your content. And when I say content, not just text, I mean copy, text, video, you name it. Everything and anything that you're putting out to the World Wide Web.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's a pleasure.
We've got Diane talking about the newsletters, and the question. Actually, now I'll get you to introduce yourself as well, Diane. Now, then after that, if you can talk about how do you actually formulate a well-planned newsletter, please?
Fantastic. So I'm Diane Bates from Creative Fruition, a marketing and communications studio based in Vic Park. I started this business 15 years ago, and we have an amazing array of clients that we do an amazing array of work for. And newsletters have historically been the foundation of any business's marketing strategy, and whether that be internal letters for businesses like BHP Billiton that have to engage with staff, or whether it's going to internal stakeholders that might be existing clients or prospective clients. So what I want to sort of summarise to begin with is what is the purpose of a newsletter. And what I see the purpose of it is a way of having continuous contact with existing and prospective clients, and a way of engaging with them. But more importantly, I think where a lot of businesses go wrong is not focusing on it being cost effective. And like any marketing strategy you put out, whether it be social media, your website, or whatever that is, it's very take caution in understanding what your return on investment is on using such a device.
So how do you do that?
So first of all, planning on anything that you do in business is always a good stage. You need to make sure that your newsletter is going to be relevant and engaging to your target audience. And you need to position yourself as the experts in your field. Ultimately, you want people to read this communication and know that you're the go-to people. So I've just got a list of a few what I think are the key points to bear in mind when for a successful newsletter. Number one is consistency is king. All too often people start a newsletter, they do one, 3 months later they do another one, 9 months later they do another one. Make a commitment to you doing it fortnightly, monthly, because that reflects on your business as well as being reliable. The other thing is ultimately the content is very critical to your newsletter. I've just got 9 little things that you might like to include in your newsletter. Education about your product or solution, how you solve problems, but take caution in not going me in your newsletter. Really focus it back on how you're solving and what your solution is, rather than we've been in business 25 years, we really think we're fantastic, here's our managing director in his car. Case studies and reassurance are exceptionally valuable in a newsletter, and testimonials following it through. Let your happy clients do the talk for you. Less is more. If you've got lengthy documents, you might consider linking those back to your website where they can read further information.
Can't be bothered with too much information.
Exactly. So give some bite-sized lead chunks, and then maybe if somebody's really fascinated by what you've got to talk about, lead them through to a further story. Engage a professional copywriter. They're professional copywriters for a reason, and they're going to keep your audience engaged. Another little tip I've got is you'll find often in business you get people regularly asking you the same question. How do you invoice, or how does this product work? Those are a really great segue to include in your newsletter to help educate your customers. And always include multiple calls to action. Ultimately, it's a sales tool, so you want to have multiple, call us now for Hypeful of this, to get out other fact sheet, etc. The design's really important. You need to make sure it's really reinforcing your brand, and because before you get to that point, you've got to make sure you've got a rock solid brand to start with. Poor design's going to reflect badly on you. Make sure that you break up text with images. Don't make it too text heavy. And a picture says 1,000 words, of course, and having great graphics. Be mindful of using stock photography. I highly recommend in the investment of a professional photography around your business.
It's amazing you mentioned the images as well, because sometimes you can hyperlink those images back, and the number of times people actually click on the image. For what reason, I don't know, but they do click it. And then you can put that back to a website.
So that's a nice segue into, thank you, whether you go with a printed newsletter these days or whether you have a HTML newsletter. So I've done some research, and print statistically actually has a higher return on investment than does HTML emails. But of course HTML emails are virtually free to send, but they have a lower read rate than a hard copy does. And we were just discussing prior how all too often you don't receive any hard copy material on your desk these days, whereas you'll receive thousands of emails. I have an inbox that says read sometime soon, went in there, there was 1,000 emails, I just picked them all up and went delete. But my desk in my office is void of information, and I as a business owner have plenty of opportunity to promote to me. So that's something to think about. A little bit more investment, but you're likely to have a higher read rate, 40% more. And the next thing is talking about distribution lists. So ultimately you've got to send this out to someone. I highly recommend investing in a good CRM to manage all of this. You can buy lists, but of course please be careful about sending unsolicited email out and offending the people you're actually sending it to.
Would you break that distribution list up with your clients?
Yeah,
or
look,
client
also
A, B,
another
C?
thing I might do is actually have 2 newsletters. One might be for existing clients and one might be for prospective clients, and the messaging might be slightly different between those, but a good CRM will allow you to position that. Offer prizes and incentives for signing up, and again tie all of that back into your social media, which we were just talking about. Don't just pigeonhole it in one thing.
Brilliant. There you go. And any final advice from you?
Yep. So don't throw good money after bad. Use an expert, and come to Creative Fruition because we focus on driving business to your door with your newsletter, and we can help you select the right platform, the databases, the distribution, the content, and effective design to make a really, a return on investment for your newsletter that you're putting out.
Brilliant. It's a huge topic, social media, just newsletters and marketing generally, and then digital media as well. So obviously I think we've answered that question fairly well, but of course they need to go into it a bit more. So do you have any questions from the audience to start with?
I've got a question for Matthew.
Doug.
Sorry, Doug and Roger.
Yep.
Roger, please.
Regarding social media, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, other buzzwords. What would you say to small businesses in terms of using those channels? It's a very broad question, but a lot of people are just opening Facebook pages. They show very few likes. They actually could be causing more harm than good to some extent. Any comments? What you'd like to share on those specifically 3 channels?
Yeah, I'll go after you. Roger. Yeah.
From our perspective, the first question would be why. Why would you want to get in? I'm a bit controversial in that I don't think every business has to be on social media. From where I sit, I sometimes think some businesses don't need to be there. I stand corrected, but it is a business decision. This is not trying to be fashionable. Trying to be what I consider Me Tooism. If you're doing it for the wrong reasons, then the clarity will be missed. So if you're a small business and you say, okay, yes, I'd like to get into one of those 4 mediums, the first question would be why. And the second question is, what are you hoping to achieve? And then the third question would be resources. It all sounds ever too easy because everyone is on it and they jumped on board, and there's a lot of stories about success rates. But there has to be some resources dedicated to that. It could be financial, it could be manpower, it could be both. But if you don't have the capacity to do that, then I think you're taking a stab in the dark. There's a lot of anecdotal stories about how a business went into social media and all of a sudden the trajectory skyrocketed. It's what I consider to be the success factor that everyone has individually. If you're sitting in a dinner table and having a conversation, you'll always hear of a relative, if I could put it in that sense, who has made money from real estate or share pricing, shares, but the ones that are silent are probably the ones that didn't make it. So try and eliminate the pure luck out of that, and look at it from a business objective. So we'll strategize in that space, and then be able to move forward.
Do you think it's true that people are looking for small businesses now on Facebook more than they are perhaps sometimes on Google. So actually doing the search through Facebook.
Okay, anecdotally, everyone knows about Google, right? And Facebook is probably number one social media space. So if you were to take that and say, okay, yes, because everyone says they're there, then as a small business, us should also be there. I think you're trying to compare apples to oranges, or you're moving away from a business objective and going more into the Me Tooism.
And I'll just add to Raja, I think if you're going to go on social media, I find a lot of businesses don't have strategies. So, for example, it does look bad if you're on Facebook and you have one post. Like, there's no content calendars, so plan out your month of content with an editorial calendar of what you're going to say, once again linking back to your branding and your messaging. Secondly, if you're going to use Facebook as a lead generation, no strategy. Like, there's a method to the madness. So if you're going to use Facebook as a lead gen, for example, there's no sales funnel. A lot of businesses don't even think about a sales funnel. So yes, if I put up a Facebook ad, where am I going to send them? Am I going to get more likes? But then what I'm going to do once they come to the page, is there a follow-up to that? There's nothing. So, there's no strategy per se when a lot of businesses hop onto Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn.
Can I add to that?
Yeah,
Now,
please do.
So I do like talking, but the difference between having a website and a Facebook page, so to speak, is if a person wants to look for Alika, they're going to go and search for Alika on Facebook. If it's not there, that's fine. But at least your competition's not coming up. Whereas if you do the same thing on a website or on Google, you search for Alika, and if you don't find the website, you're going to say, okay, which other SEO company or other companies exist in Perth? And all your competition comes up. So I would probably say it's important to have a website, but again, if your target market falls into the social media space, it's good to have your LinkedIn pages and Facebook pages and everything else set up.
I was looking probably perhaps slightly differently. I was looking probably more from an SEO point of view, because having Facebook as well, if you go into Google and you are backed up with a Facebook page, there is probably more chance you're going to be higher in the rankings. Would that be fair to say?
Oh yeah, 100%. Like
So
page.
if you're losing out on being found in Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn, it all contributes to not actually being found in Google.
The social signals that's being generated. Yes.
Yeah.
There's a direct correlation.
But it's about having all marketing's really about having a multi-pronged approach, and like anything, having all your eggs in one basket to some degree, carries risk with it. But obviously some are going to have better return on investment in certain areas than others.
Yeah.
I mean, if I may say, and I like to talk a lot as well. So
You should join us.
My view on it is that small businesses do need to be on those channels.
Yeah.
But they need to have a better understanding of, they need to have strategy, they need to have the right content, and they have to have an understanding of why they actually need to be there. But I don't think it's being driven home by anyone.
Actually, one of the questions that you asked, I don't think we addressed that. If a person goes onto a Facebook page and they see 20 likes compared to their competition having 200 likes or 500 likes, 1,000 likes, how does that reflect on the business, generally speaking? It's better not to have the Facebook page at all than having 20 likes on it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's so many factors. I mean, obviously, from branding purposes, if you only have 2 likes compared to your competitor who has 20, it's like going to an Indian restaurant. Sishan, love Indian food, thank you. So, who would you go to? The restaurant with more people in it, or the restaurant with less people? You'd go with the one with more people. But just on what Amaro said about SEO, it is important, because just a year ago, a lot of people, because Facebook has high SEO value, what a lot of people were doing was facebook.com/ their keyword was the name of their page, so it could be Marketing Perth, and they'd call their page that, because a year ago Google ranked highly Facebook pages. So also from a branding perspective, when you type someone's name into a business into Google, absolutely, you want to see Facebook, you want to see LinkedIn, you want to see their website.
But ultimately, you're going to start with 0 friends on your Facebook. So, to get from that 0 to 100, 1,000 likers, you need a really solid strategy of what other sort of marketing resources you're going to put in place to get people liking your page and not just hoping that they're mysteriously searching for your law firm or your accountants or your lawn mowing business or whatever it is. There's got to be some rationale why they're liking, and whether it's shareable items that have led them to your page or whatever it is. But that strategy needs to be thought out. But obviously you're not going to start off with 1,000 likes automatically.
Okay, good.
Unless you buy them, of course.
Unless you buy them. Unless you've got lots of aunties and uncles.
So we've got a few questions happening there. So, sorry, Sue.
Yeah, so when Facebook, when people of my generation first discovered Facebook, it was for the younger generation, and I've got 300 friends that have found me from my past who I'll never have anything to do with again. Which at that point in time was the bulk of people who were connected to people of my generation.
Yeah.
And then I used it as a means to stalk my son when he was overseas, so I could follow up what the heck he was up to, because he would never communicate with me any other way. And so I've built up a community of people I never want to speak to again, and my son's friends. And now I want to recover from that and use it as a tool to promote me and my business. So what strategies would you suggest that I use to recover from my darker past?
Is it under your name?
Yes, it is.
Is your business under your name?
No, it's not. But
Yeah.
Then
my
don't
business-
use that as your business Facebook. Am I correct here?
But
Start.
people still find me. If they
Yeah.
search for my name, they will still find my personal Facebook page because they're looking for me and not my business name.
It's
Yeah.
your expertise on this
Yeah,
thing,
yeah.
but I know what I'd say.
Yeah, well, I use my personal Facebook to brand myself, and it works really well because I actually understand how the newsfeed algorithm works. So I won't go into that today, but basically, one of the easiest things you can do is don't post negative stuff. I don't post negative stuff. I don't put rants or anything like that. I put all my awards, I put all my achievements, I put all my positive affirmations, quotes, and actually I post a lot of my family because that's important to me. And I'm a man of faith as well, so I'll put some of that in there as well. So, and it's interesting because I'll go to my church and people will go, hey, I saw what you did on the weekend, blah, blah, blah. I hadn't even spoken to them, but it's because I'd branded myself on my Facebook that they've seen that. And I've got lots of funny stories. I'll just do a quick one, if that's all right, Sishan. I met Colin Barnett and I put a photo of me and him on Facebook. And then I got the NIFNEX 100 influential business people. Someone called me up and said, hey Doug, we've got to catch up. I heard you got an award given by Colin Barnett.
That was me.
Yeah, it was Sishan. So
Sishan was the one.
that's
Colin Passion.
it. Yeah.
I
But
think
you-
it's,
yeah,
it's
so-
a decision you've got to make personally as well. I do a lot of business out of my
Yeah.
own personal Facebook, and Zishan's a friend on my Facebook. You know, there's lots of people that I meet in my business realm who've become friends, and they live in my Facebook world. But I also have a business Facebook as well. So if you want to have that very personal Facebook, go off and make that one and shut it down and just keep it very personal to friends. You know, you have to think about what you're prepared to share and have out there. Some people I know, with all due respect, are not keen to have clients looking at pictures of their babies or their children on Facebook and think that's inappropriate and where the line should be drawn. So those are things to think about, merging those medias.
Can I add to it again?
Mhm.
Sorry. So I use my personal page as a personal branding tool.
That's good.
That's when you sort of put things up that's authentic to you. I'm not saying that I'm not authentic on my business page, but there's a difference in the way I communicate or the way we put status updates. So I would go, woohoo, we won something on my personal page, whereas on my business page it'd be more like, hey, we won something. Does it make sense? So it's more about being just you, and you can do what you want to do, say what you want to say. And those people that you have connected, 30 years ago, they could be your biggest personal ambassadors, your brand ambassadors. And if I put something up, the people that had connected about 20 years ago, they're the first people to sort of like what I put up because they sort of feel, hey, this guy's doing what he has to do and he's successful at it. So those people are the ones who actually are the first ones to like to pay your status. And that adds to your social links. So, anything else? There you go, Rory.
Sean, I just wanted to explore a little bit more about, we talked about anecdotal earlier on social media particularly. In terms of being able to actually see or measure the benefit transactions, you talked about getting that actual transaction happening and having it, in terms of securing real actual business. Is there any way you can look to see, measure that? And secondly, are you able to share at all any personal examples of real, actual new businesses come through specifically those channels?
Yeah, sure. Well, Facebook, in terms of Facebook, Facebook gives you a tracking pixel that you can put on your landing pages, that, like, say, your thank you page. So after someone signs up, you can put this little piece of code, and then from Facebook, you can track the number of conversions that come through. So that's one example. A client that we've done, one of our clients is City of Stirling. Some of you guys might have heard of the Somerset Festival. It was just down on the beach. We ran a Facebook campaign, increased traffic to their website by about 80%, and 67% of that was through Facebook. So we were just relying on the viral nature of Facebook, when people tag everyone else's name on it. So the catalyst was the ads, but then people were tagging people's names, check this out, and it just exponentially grew from that. And those extra people that came to the website from that exponential growth, we didn't even pay for. It was just that initial ads that we had set up. So a lot of it is trackable, and you can set up goals and conversions in Google Analytics if you're wanting to track traffic from social to your website. So it's a little bit more technical, but it's all trackable.
It is.
Yep. And personally, that's how we do our clients, because it's a lot of our clients go, yep, we pay this for social media, but what's my ROI on it? It's very hard to show them unless you have quantifiable results.
Absolutely, that point
So-
would be the question exactly that.
Yeah.
Because I think everyone in the room, everyone in the world now basically understands the power and the influence of these mediums.
Yeah.
But actually having that translate into metrics, into measurable metrics from a business perspective, that's also obviously very important, very valuable to be able to see, touch, and relate to.
Absolutely, Roy.
And if I could add, as I mentioned earlier, in the social media space, to answer the question there, it has to have the business objectives. So if you're doing it for other, maybe aesthetics type of reasoning, then you wouldn't have those measures and matrices. And from where we look at it, also those metrics have to be very directly relevant. So is it sales or is it awareness? Because you're not measuring them in the same fashion. You might, as Doug mentioned, that was more of an awareness campaign. So you've got the likes, but someone else might want, something different as a measure. So you have to be very precise of what you're trying to measure rather than just saying measuring. You can measure anything. You can measure the number of sand grains in the beach, but what are you trying actually to do with that information? So it has to be very precise in terms of what you want to measure. Time frame is also very critical, because then you know what you're getting for a period of time, and also you have to have a benchmark. You can measure something, but if you don't have a benchmark, then from our perspective, it's irrelevant.
And then the second component of your question was, does any business actually come out of it? I see it as an online form of word of mouth. So it all adds to the end of the day. I think we've got Radha, you had a question?
Yes, I wanted to ask Diane, you spoke about newsletters, and you were talking primarily about external facing ones to clients, existing clients and prospective clients. What, are there any differences for internal facing newsletters that you would say you would think are very important
Look, it's basically going to be around the content of the newsletter. There might be some design tweaks in terms of talking to your internal audience. For some of the, primarily what we do for a lot of our mining clients and people like Western Power, etc., we do a lot of internal stakeholder newsletters for them. They can often be driven around topics such as safety. Again, the business is looking at the deliverables and outcomes of what they're trying to achieve with those newsletters and the cause and effect that they want to have and the results from them. So often it's more business, obviously business orientated or staff engagement and oriented, sorry. But you know, they might have a social aspect to them because there might be events coming up that people need to be notified. There might be pictures of the event that was hosted and all those sorts of things, hints and tips that you can pop in there. So it's pretty much the same rollout, but it's just the content is personalised to the audience. No matter what I mean, you could be a knitting, crafting, and sewing newsletter. That's going to be very different to a heavy metal newsletter in terms of the content that's in it.
And so internal calls to action for internal.
Yeah, well, it depends what you want. I mean, so for example, with our work with BHP Billiton, you know, staff coming home safe and well and family commitment and things like that. There might be drugs and alcohol issues that need to be resolved, or you know, fly in, fly out is we know quite stressful at times. So the newsletter might have, again, more sort of educational information in those newsletters about coming home happy, great family environment, or cyclones, or you name it, what's relevant to the target audience. But yeah, look, quite key. They're usually generally only done for reasonably substantial companies. You know, somewhere under 10 is probably not going to be producing a newsletter. But yeah, they're a very valuable tool for sharing of knowledge with an organisation.
Very good questions as well. So can you give a round of applause? Thank you.